reasons that experts agree to, give up their time to speak to me or help me do things or collaborate with me, usually it comes down to the fact that some of my unanswered questions are actually shared by them, and some of the questions that come up, must go unanswered. I suppose just being a bit of a kind of wild child of the sort of 70s, kicking around the countryside as your playground, really. That like an interest in botany, of course, I wouldn't have called it such a thing there, but a general interest in natural sciences, life and death, the way things interact with each other and interconnect was very much a part of my kind of childhood wondering. When I was at art school, I was really intrigued by life drawing, representing the figure. I was really bad at it, but I knew that interest in the body was very much there. Art and anatomy from the earliest days had a real interconnected relationship in terms of representing the body. So when I went for the first time to the Anatomy Museum and I saw the specimens in jars, the intricacy and beauty of both the kind of human sort of specimens preserved, dissections preserved, just the beauty of that, it was kind of like, that's it, that's the jigsaw puzzle piece that was missing. This is how I can think about my interest in relation to the body and the presentation of the body. The very first questions that I was asking were usually about borrowing things. So I was going to ask to borrow specimens. I think I got lucky. I met someone who was an incredibly engaging and interesting person. A kind of old school anatomy, general interest in, liberal arts. I was given a catalogue of the bone suppliers who supplied the specimens to the students in anatomy, and that sort of blew my mind that you could buy a human bones, just ring up and order a spine or a complete skeleton or whatever. That's an important example of the kind of dialogue. Usually it's something quite simple I'm asking, but it opens a door into a whole sort of world of knowledge. Quite often I will have a strong association with a material that is immediately kind of suggesting its use. So the use of plaster casting is a good example. Of course, it's got an artistic association with historical casting, but also life and death masks being taken in plaster. I suppose going back to my interest in medical museums and the way that it's used there. The materials themselves are, I'm very careful to think about what story they're telling, but then of course, there's just the very kind of day-to-day artist's work of what do the materials do once you start manipulating them. I do spend a lot of time just sitting with a sketchbook and trying to think through things, but then it's really important to spend a similar amount of time with materials, because sometimes these thoughts that just couldn't develop, suddenly they manifest themselves. First of all, it's the aesthetics, but then it's the ethics as well. The question of, well, yes, that's an incredibly preserved, gallbladder, injected with mercury to show the tissue network, but whose was it and how was it obtained? And that's something that I've been able to keep, that's staying with me throughout my whole career, is trying to ask that question to medical professionals and museum people, and also trying to kind of work my way through it in the work to try to figure it out for myself and hopefully for audiences too. One incredible object, a fetal skeleton that had been bound in leather, and there was also a female pelvis with it, and it was a demonstration model for childbirth. What I was interested in when I saw the objects there was this you know, the two sides of the coin between, yes, it's a teaching aid, it's a demonstration, it's got this sort of medical purpose that's to do with education, yet the object itself is so full of pathos, and there will be a tragic story inherent in it. Is that a dignified sort of way to be sort of handling that? You know, what about the history of that? What about the woman whose pelvis has also been used as a demonstration model? Sometimes, you know, it's about trying to find answers, but often it's about layering more and more questions on top of things that, you know, there is no definitive answer to. It's just the big picture is life and death. So these things are incredibly complex, and quite often the works do represent that too. Most of the time, the journey is more important than any answer at the end. It can be that these questions remain unanswered.